So I printed this out, and here it all is on that plain piece of paper, except it, again, the back of it's designed. I didn't do the, I actually did this one before I found out how to make those be the same, but that's okay with me. I'm not going to fuss about it. Um, this text again, I wrote out the words. I welded the images so that everything's connected. This is we talked about that. There is a video on that one called about working with text, and then filled it with the same pattern. I tilted it. This is my best guess of the right way to do it. I figure, we'll just give it a shot. So the next part that you need to pay attention to, and I want to make sure I'm not skipping anything here. So let me go back to my screen here and share. In order to make sure that you see a print preview every time, you want to go to Edit, Preferences, and then under the General tab, you'll see Show Print Preview. Make sure that box is checked. You say, okay, it is, or apply if it wasn't before. So now I know that's there. Here's something important to know. Oh boy, did I really do that? Oh, you know something? I'm gonna do something here. Hang on, just 1 second. I'm gonna close this because I'm gonna break my own rule if I don't. Sorry, I'm working on a tiny desk here. Boy, I can't wait. I'm going to tell it not to change. I don't want to save any changes because you really shouldn't. You really can't. It's not shouldn't. You can't make any changes once you've printed what you're going to cut, because obviously that would throw everything off. So you need to keep it all the same. So I'm going to open it back up. Yeah, because I noticed that I must have moved something because this was way up near the top, this edge. So line colors, we kind of talked about that a little bit. If the line, I'm gonna ungroup this. I'm gonna go over here. If the line is more than 0.0, it will print. You notice on the box itself, the box is now highlighted, the actual card, the thing that's going to cut out. And we come up here and we look, it's 0.0. It won't print. Matter of fact, I'll show you. I'll tell it to print. It's going to pop up print preview, and you see how you don't see it. If I were to increase that even just a little bit, and I do a print preview, now you see the lines, and that means that's going to print. Well, you don't really want to do that. So I'm going to undo that. I'm going to undo everything until I can't undo anything anymore. Okay, so now my arrow's grayed out. So I know this is how I brought the file in. Okay, we talked about using the fill panel. Because it frequently doesn't work well if you try to rearrange these things. Now, if I wanted to cut something out that was half of a sheet, that wouldn't be a problem because I'd make the media size half of a sheet. It would set up the registration marks that way. And so, so let's say it's, 8.5 by 5.5. It would be fine. But I'm not going to be able to use this part of this for a print and cut anymore. For cardstock, it's not that big of a deal. I can probably find something else to do with it or just recycle it. But when you get to using things like the heat transfer paper, you don't want to waste big parts of it because once you cut it, you can't cut anything else out of it. So we'll talk about that in a little bit when we look at some of the heat transfer projects. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to send this. Okay. Oh, let's see. if your design is asymmetrical and the printed side will be inked side down when you apply it, like our transfer paper for light fabrics, you need to flip this. And I'll show you that again on another project. It's just I'm following my outline here and I want to make sure I address it. The reason you want to do it that way is because it may ask you, depending on the, it literally will, it can, when you tell it what sort of materials you want to cut, it'll say, hey, you need to flip this image. Printable vinyl is one it'll do that. And the problem is the way it flips it, it actually takes it from one side of the page to the other. And so it not only inverts it. See, if I have this all selected and I tell it to, actually, let me go over here because I don't want to mess with that. Here's my little Mother's Day project. If I want to put this on, just say this is what I want to do for this project. If I don't flip it, one, it's going to be backwards because we're going to print this out and then we're going to flip it over. The ink's going to go directly onto the canvas board. And if I wait and do that in the send panel, and it will ask me, it should ask me, it'll flip it to over here instead. And like, that doesn't work for print and cut. So what you have to do is right click on the image and tell it to flip horizontally. That way it'll print right here and it'll cut right here. So, but we'll get back to that in a minute. So let's go ahead and look at this. So we're going to send it to print and cut. So I've already printed it. I loaded it in the printer. Don't make any changes to design after you print it. And then load your material on the mat exactly the way you see it on screen. See where the arrow is? Notice that this happens to be laid crosswise rather than up and down like we see on this. If I went to print this, I would need to put my paper on the mat like this. For this one, I need to put it across here, which I have done. I showed you that map. So I see where the arrow is. I have the arrow at the top of my mat, and I'm going to load it into my printer or into my Silhouette, and cross your fingers, I'm going to cut it. So hang on just a sec. I had hoped to be able to show you this with my brand new camera setup, but that's one of those things that's taking longer. But you get the sound effects. Here, this will be fun. Okay, now I'm going to go to send. And this is just what I picked. I happen to be using it's easier if I look here. I am using an auto blade on this, which is always dicey in my book, but I'm looking here. Yes, I want this to cut. Yep, I'm good. Okay, here we go. You should, this is where I say you should always test. I cut a lot of cardstock. I know what tends to work. I haven't used it, but the thing is I haven't used this blade in a good long time. So I would normally do a little bit of a test cut on this just to make sure that that the blade was still good and everything. But we're just going to, go crazy and have a good time. So I'm going to, it's all ready, it's cutting the right thing. I'm going to send. Now I want you to listen to this. It's reading the bottom mark. Now it's reading the mark in the upper right-hand corner. And now it's going to cut. So she says. It says it's working. And this is normal. All these noises are perfectly normal. This is not a quiet machine.